Paragraph. On the morning that would later be dissected by news anchors, social media commentators, and motivational speakers across the United States, 19-year-old Aaliyah Carter stood at the bus stop outside her grandmother's small, weathered house in rural Georgia, clutching her backpack with shaking hands, knowing she was supposed to be on her way to the most important economics exam of her college career, an exam that could determine whether she kept her scholarship, stayed enrolled, and remained the first in her family with a real shot at breaking the cycle of paycheck-to-paycheck survival. Yet instead of reviewing formulas or scrolling nervously through notes, she was staring at a black luxury sedan pulled over awkwardly on the side of the road, steam hissing from beneath its hood like something wounded and angry, while inside sat an older white man in an expensive suit, gripping the steering wheel with the quiet panic of someone who had never been helpless before. And when Aaliyah approached to ask if he was okay, unaware that the man was Jonathan Hale, one of the most powerful billionaires in American tech and a name that would soon dominate headlines, she had no idea that this single moment of compassion would collide with her own ambition, her past trauma, and the hidden machinery of wealth in ways she could never have imagined. Because Hale wasn't just late for a meeting, he was late for a private flight to New York where he planned to finalize a corporate decision that would result in thousands of layoffs. And as Aaliyah listened to him explain, in clipped, irritated tones, that his phone had no signal and his car had inexplicably died in the middle of nowhere, something in her shifted. The same something that had been shaped by watching her grandmother work double shifts as a home health aide, by seeing her mother's dreams dissolve under medical bills, by understanding that systems didn't bend easily for people who looked like her. And though every instinct screamed at her to turn away and catch the bus to campus, she instead offered him her own phone, then her help, then her time, calling a local mechanic she knew, translating the mechanic's thick accent when Hale grew impatient, and sitting with him under the rising heat as minutes slipped away like sand, each one carrying her further from the exam hall and closer to an irreversible choice. And when Hale finally asked her what she was missing by helping him, and she told him the truth, that she was skipping a midterm worth 40% of her grade, he laughed in disbelief, not mocking, but genuinely stunned that anyone would sacrifice so much for a stranger. And in that laugh was the first crack in the armor he'd spent decades building, because Hale had built his empire by believing people were assets or obstacles, not allies. And as the mechanic finally arrived and diagnosed a sabotage-level electrical failure that would take hours to fix, Hale offered to pay Aaliyah hundreds of dollars to call a rideshare and leave, but she refused, saying quietly that she couldn't abandon someone in need, especially when she knew what it felt like to be overlooked. And something about that sentence followed Hale long after his driver finally arrived to whisk him away, leaving Aaliyah standing alone in the dust, the bus long gone, the exam missed, and her phone buzzing with automated emails warning her of academic consequences. And when she returned home to tell her grandmother, she braced for disappointment but instead received a slow nod and a hug, her grandmother saying that character mattered more than convenience, words that would echo in Aaliyah's mind weeks later when her professor denied her request for a makeup exam, citing strict policy, resulting in her scholarship being placed under review. And as stress mounted, Aaliyah took on extra shifts at a grocery store, unaware that Jonathan Hale had not forgotten her, because back in his glass-walled office overlooking San Francisco, Hale found himself replaying the encounter over and over, disturbed by how easily her life could be derailed by one act of kindness while his own decisions routinely altered thousands of lives with a signature. And driven by a curiosity he hadn't felt in years, he ordered his security team to find her, not to reward her. He told himself, but to understand her, and what he uncovered unsettled him even more. A top-performing student from an underfunded high school, juggling work, family care, and academic excellence with no safety net. And as Hale watched interviews she'd done for small local scholarships, speaking about economic justice and opportunity, he began to question the layoff plan he'd been so determined to execute, leading to an internal war with his board, who accused him of losing focus. And in a move that shocked Wall Street, Hale delayed the decision, citing the need for ethical review, triggering rumors of declining health or hidden scandals, while Aaliyah, oblivious to the chaos, struggled quietly, applying for emergency aid, fighting anxiety, and wondering if she'd made the worst mistake of her life until one afternoon, months later, the deep rhythmic thump of helicopter blades shattered the calm of her neighborhood, sending children running outside and neighbors staring skyward as a sleek black helicopter descended onto the patchy grass of her grandmother's yard, flattening laundry lines and whipping dust into the air. And as it touched down, Aaliyah froze, heart racing, when the door opened and Jonathan Hale stepped out, not in a suit this time, but in rolled-up sleeves, walking toward her with a seriousness that silenced the crowd gathering at the fence. And when he spoke, his voice carried not authority but humility, as he explained that her kindness had forced him to confront the human cost of his power, that he had reversed the layoffs, launched a scholarship foundation in her name for students from marginalized communities, and personally arranged for her reinstatement and full funding at her university, including paid internships and mentorship. But the biggest twist came when Hale revealed that the breakdown of his car hadn't been random at all, that an internal whistleblower had later uncovered sabotage meant to delay him so the board could push through the layoffs without his signature. Meaning that Aaliyah's presence hadn't just helped him, it had protected thousands of families. And as cameras arrived and the story exploded nationwide, Aaliyah stood overwhelmed, realizing that the exam she'd missed had never been the real test, that the true measure had been who she chose to be when no one was watching. And as Hale shook her grandmother's hand and promised ongoing support, Aaliyah understood that systems could change, not through blind luck, but through courage colliding with conscience. And while critics debated whether her story was an exception or a lesson, one truth became undeniable across America: that a young black woman, armed with nothing but empathy and resolve, had altered the trajectory of lives far beyond her own, proving that sometimes the longest journeys toward justice begin not in boardrooms or classrooms, but on the side of a forgotten road, when someone decides that helping another human matters more than making it on time.